Um, Towards the end of the chapter, you talk about well, the last section of the chapter is called "The Problems with Absolute Purpose and Their Solution." What is absolute purpose?
Well, absolute purpose is the reality of life, is that there's infinite purpose, and things are absolutely purposeful. The issue is that we're humans and we are limited in our knowledge. So, um, many people know people who, or are the kind of people who are very annoyed by and skeptical of people who like have a wild common connection and they interpret all sorts of crazy meaning behind it. And while I think what we've gone through in this book so far underpins better that point of view that there is all this overflowing meaning beyond what we normally consider, and it's not the case that things are just meaningless. It does become a problem when people assume that they know the meanings behind things because we don't know the meanings behind things for the most part. Um, and so just to kind of what you were saying there at the end where you said, why did I go through this? Well, maybe it's because, and I think that maybe is really important because it's just a suggestion. It's like, well, what if you looked at it in this way? And you'll still have plenty of modern cynics who will just say, well, yeah, but what if I don't look at it in that way? It's like, okay, whatever, then don't. But if on the other hand you say, well, you went through that because, you're not saying maybe, you're absolute because, you know, God wanted you to learn X. God wanted you to learn humility, so he put you through that. That way more people are going to be lost on that. And I think rightly so. And that's a relatively mild example. There's the just sort of trivial and annoying examples of like, oh my gosh, uh, I had a dream last night, and then I saw a butterfly flying today, and then now I met you, and you have a butterfly tattoo, and we're supposed to be best friends for life. It's like, you know, maybe those two people go and live happily ever after, but most people, maybe it's not a virtue, but most of us are just like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's just sort of trivial and annoying, especially annoying to sort of the hyper scientist people who are, have a whole spiel. But um, then there's the moralizing bit of like, God made you go through that because you, whatever. And that I think is the worst bit. And it can get a lot worse where it's like, you know, oh, your child died. Like, oh, well, your child died because you were unfaithful to your wife or because you stopped going to church. It's like, really? That um and Jesus directly says this. He points to a tragedy that had happened recently in their memories at that time. And he says, do you really think that all the people who died in the collapse of that, whatever it was, that building, they were what, especially more sinful than everyone else around them? Like, no, there's some just chaos and some tragedy that's not, you can't just say, well, that happened because you were sinful in this way or in any way. Again, it happens with the blind man when the Pharisees come up and they're like, well, who sinned to make this person blind? Was it their parents or was it him? He was born blind, so someone must have sinned. And they sort of, I don't think they're totally just assuming that, they see the problem and the problem that it causes with God, and they're trying to stump him with a very difficult problem because the problem of evil and tragedy in the world is a huge problem that humans do not know how to totally comprehend. And so, but the reality is, the answer is we don't know. And to say, oh, yes, this happened because of your sin, either this particular sin that I know about or just in general, you're sinful, so therefore this happened to you. That's wrong to make that assumption because you don't know and you can't know. And even Jesus says, don't do that. Like that's not the appropriate way to react to these situations. So absolute purpose is a reality. When we internalize absolute purpose, we can become, to use more Jungian terms, we can become inflated and believe that not only is there absolute purpose, but I am perfect at discerning absolute purpose. And that's really where the problem comes in. And so, fortunately, even though absolute purpose causes some pretty big problems and and has been a problem for ages in terms of people believing it and then implying it uh, where they shouldn't. The solution is simple. It's that we're fallible, and we should recognize that we're fallible and that we're limited, and we just simply don't know the absolute purpose behind everything. And there's a lot of things that uh, we're just not going to know the meaning behind, and that's just life.
Yeah, yeah, that brings to mind, there was some I've actually seen this pop up on Twitter a couple of times, and in all sincerity, I mean it's posted with in sincerity, or they believe it's really true, but I've heard that people think that those that are balding or that who are bald is because of their sinful nature and degeneracy, and that is what makes them lose their lose their hair,
Yeah.
and so it's I mean it's just complete wackadoo. I mean, think about it too with what is the Salem witch trials. Well, if we put this large like log or stone on them in the lake, if they sink and die, well, then they weren't a witch. But if they
Yeah.
don't, if they live, then they're a witch, and we're gonna have to kill them. So like just and laughing not at the situation, but just at the
Right.
complete bonkers ridiculousness of it, and just that people think that they are the absolute arbiters of truth and justice, and it's not God, it's them. And so
Right. Exactly.
they're going to come up with, well, if this person has a slightly larger left elbow than the right elbow, then that means that they're such and such. And, you could just, well, blue eyes are better than brown. I mean, just the prejudices just are never ending, and people can attribute meaning willy-nilly to all sorts of things that are complete nonsensical things.